Hello and welcome to the Soulful Shift podcast. You are not going to want to miss today's episode. It is an incredibly rich conversation that I have with my guest, Matt Gerlach. Matt is a transformational, high performance growth coach, business growth strategist, dynamic speaker, and an author. He has a book coming out soon. We went into all kinds of areas talking about alignment, how to pull yourself into alignment. What does the process look like? What does it feel like? We both shared personal stories. There's something really important when we start to share our own stories. You can start to see that alignment is a journey, and a lot of what you may be going through and experiencing is what those of us who have actually walked this path before have experienced as well. So I really hope you enjoy today's conversation. Hello, Matt. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am super excited to have this conversation with you.
I am very excited to be here as well. We've had a nice pre-chat right now, and I'm really excited.
Awesome. I am too. So, just so you all know who you're listening, Matt and I did have a conversation before, and there is so much that we have in common. And so, I know this conversation is going to be super rich and rewarding. First of all, Matt, I want you to share just really briefly in your own words, like what is it you do? Because there is so much in alignment with us.
I'm a lifestyle first coach for successful and established business owners and executives. People come to me when they recognize that there's misalignment happening in their careers and lives. It's all intertwined and are willing to figure out what's going on. Most of the time, it doesn't mean burning bridges. A lot of times, it means setting boundaries, communicating, and just realizing that it's not all or nothing. And I really support them through this journey after being on it myself. Mine's a little bit more extreme. I'm sure we'll get into that. I've made some pretty drastic changes and I'm survived and lived to tell, and living proof that you can make these big changes in middle of life or even later in life. But I love helping people find this alignment that so many of us lost because of things that happened in childhood or earlier in life. And we've learned to abandon ourselves in the name of success.
Oh, I could draw on so many pieces of that. But one of the first things I noticed that you said is that, misalignment and in professional lives and our personal lives, and they're intertwined. And, the work I do, I help people mostly with their career. However, when I work one-on-one with clients, it always goes into your personal life. We can't separate the two. It's this myth and this notion that we've been sold many years ago that, who you are in your professional life is separate from who you are in your personal life. And that just isn't true.
Not if you want to feel aligned. If you want to feel separate, yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that, I suppose, but it's not for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I also love what you said about it doesn't always mean burning bridges. And, I think for someone like you said, we're going to go into your story in a minute here. You've had quite the journey, and I'm so excited for you to share it. But that's been the same with me. I've had to burn a lot of bridges, but I also believe that there's those of us who are here at this time on this earth to guide others. And we had to go through the extremes. We had to go to
Mhm.
be able to see what is the worst case scenario and is there a better way to navigate it. So I do believe, like I said, for people like you and me who are guiding and leading in this time, we had to go through it to see it the full extreme. What has been your experience in that?
I really agree with you. And just to be clear, and I'm assuming the same for you, like I didn't like leave anything kicking and screaming and like yelling at people at all. It was
Right.
just like I mean, I guess more in my mind, I've burned the bridges because I don't want to go back to any of that
Yeah.
stuff. I stayed in situations that weren't a fit way too long. And as you and I were discussing before, this doesn't like go away. Eventually, if there's things that need to be dealt with, misalignment, the longer we put it off, the more it's just going to continue to eat us alive and need to be dealt with in a more extreme. Like in an ideal world, we would, be taking ample vacations and allowing rest and recovery in our normal days and lives and perhaps even a sabbatical every couple of years. So we don't reach that point of burnout. But I was completely burned out from just staying in a situation that was so misaligned and doing it for money. I also don't regret it either. Like it's the journey, it is what it is. And I mean, quite honestly, it set me up. I mean, we've talked about this earlier. I'm not rich, but I do have quite a substantial cushion to be able to, now at 42, be able to really pursue the life that is ideal. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I love
I'm
you
happy to
sharing.
share some more specifics.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
would love you to. Yeah, let's dive into your story. And I would love as we go
Okay,
through
great.
this is to pull some of the pieces because so many people listening to this, they can feel like their situation, like you can feel very isolated and very alone when you hit and you realize you are out of alignment. Things are not working. It can be one of the scariest and loneliest places. So I think being able
Yeah.
to share some of the stories really can help people feel less alone and know that there actually is a way out of this, and things can be very, very different, and you are living proof of this. So I'd love you to start sharing what brought you to the point where you went, okay, this is not working.
Yeah, so I think the story would start when me in the hospital. It was back in 2017. I had just been laid off from a Silicon Valley software sales job, and the writing was on the wall. And as we were talking before, I probably had about six or $700,000 in the bank at this point. I was 32 years old. Like I absolutely had, the bandwidth and the resources to take $100,000, 150, and figure out what I really wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. Instead, I went back and I started a sales and marketing agency in the baby product industry, which is an industry that I had spent the prior like 5 years in and left voluntarily because I was burnt out. And I went back into this because I didn't know what else to do with my life. Immediately, I was met with what I would have called worry back then. I didn't know that emotional health mattered. I wouldn't have been able to use a term like anxiety and given it merit for any reason to not like thrive at 150%, 20 hours a day. But I was worried. I just worried uncontrollably about disappointing people, messing something up. I, was undervaluing myself and overselling my services in a way like I didn't recognize that what I was doing required a certain sort of infrastructure that my clients needed to have, which more often than not they didn't. So I had to fill in there. And, I found Oprah really helpful. I remember being in the Reno airport going to a trade show, listening to listening to one of her books where she says, Your life is always speaking to you. And the whispers just keep getting louder and louder until, somebody said the proverbial two by four, I think, hits you in the head. And that's my journey was a little bit of a slow journey of realizing that. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, drinking a ton at night, entertaining clients. That's really all I knew how to do to get clients. It worked, I mean, just really whining and dining and traveling and drinking and marijuana and just everything, trying to sleep and stay awake and ease the nerves. So in 2017, as I said, I wound up in the hospital. My husband and I moved from New York to LA. The first day we were here, I mean, we were unpacking a couple hours after we landed, and I started having chest pain, shortness of breath, took my blood pressure because my blood pressure was very high already, and it was like 190 over 110. And I went to the hospital and they checked me in, unsure if at 32 I had a heart attack.
Wow.
Shortly after panic attacks started happening, I couldn't drive for like 2 years, really. And it was just like the irony was not lost on me that I could get in an Uber, get to the airport, get to New York, take an Uber all over New York, to New Jersey for meetings. And I'm doing all of this, like smoking cigarettes and drinking and yet back at home, I couldn't even like drive to the gym.
That is
So eventually, I ended up in the hospital again. And long story short, but after lots of therapy and seeing tons of doctors, I'm sure that people had said this to me earlier in life, but I was resistant, but realized that this was all really because of a traumatic childhood that hadn't been dealt with. in the name of success, I was seeking accolades and belonging, and I poured myself into my career. And I would have said I had zero interests at all other than, working and drinking with friends and, going to the gym once in a while. But eventually, I started really paying attention to what my life was asking and started writing a book about the whole journey and slowly ended up leaving this career that during all of this success had grown to where I was making over $1 million a year. I left it to pursue something that meant a lot more to me. And I can tell you that after just a few months, I quickly realized that I'd rather be living in a tiny apartment somewhere undesirable than being unhappy at work anymore. And I'll pass the microphone to you.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, I've got so many things I want to share here. You know what came through when I was listening to is like, I'm sure to everybody looking at you, you had it all. It must have looked that way. I can only imagine the perception that, and that feeling. And I know so many of my clients who come to me, and I'm sure it's the same thing with the people that come to your clients. It's like on paper, life looks perfect. And I think sometimes the more perfect our life looks on paper, and this is my experience, the more imperfect it actually is on the inside because we spend so much time and energy, like you mentioned, the accolades, the looking, the perception. You are, wining and dining clients, and you're getting clients and traveling and all these things that we see that we almost put on a pedestal in this life. That looks amazing.
You know, Yeah, I mean, I love that you went right there because what strikes me the most is like, I mean, everything you said is true. I looked really good. Looking back at pictures, I was the skinniest, like not even skinny. I mean, I was like fit, like
Yeah, in
trim,
shape.
like,
Yep.
like buff. Like I was working out,
Love
drinking a lot
that.
of water, not really eating food. And I mean, I ate food, but not like three
Yeah.
meals a day. Um, yeah, and I remember, one of like someone very close to me said, it's hard to believe you're suffering right now when your Instagram looks like it does. And there was a time I remember, like, when I was in my early 20s getting my first Louis Vuitton bag, and I was like, I am so cool. Like, this feels so good. Like, during this time, these accolades, this success, I didn't feel cool. None of this was like satisfying. Like, I wasn't like, I'm sharing this more. It's like a subconscious thing. Like we're chasing accolades because there's nothing else to chase. It's not like it's like feeding us in the same way anymore. There was a time when it did, and then it's like, oh, cool, another 10,000 bucks. I don't even care right now. Like I just want to like go to bed. And yet, like on the outside, people think like, oh, he's on a jet. I mean, not a private jet, but like on like like a plane, and it's just like he's doing all these things, and like they, they don't realize like I mean just how lonely this is, and they're kind of admonishing us and isolating us thinking that we're that we have it all. And I don't know, I've been saying this a lot lately. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for the billionaires in the world, but I do understand that you know everyone's misunderstood. Money doesn't solve anything. At the end of the day, I really think my gift in the world, or gift to myself, the world's gift to me, maybe, is that at a younger age than most, I made more money than most
Mm.
and was able to realize that money does solve a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve every problem or even most problems, I would argue.
Oh, it is so true. And it does solve problems, like you said, but it doesn't solve the problem of how you feel about yourself.
Mhm.
Money can't solve
Absolutely.
that. Money's a tool, and it's a beautiful tool. And I mean, I think it's great. And I'm certainly never anybody who says here money is bad or you shouldn't want the
Mhm.
success. You shouldn't want that because I believe that's part of the human experience and we can't ignore that. However, it's not all the end all be all. I think it was Jim Carrey who said, I wish everybody could be famous to understand that
Yeah.
that's not it. And
Mhm.
as we talked about before we went live here or when we were started recording, that there is not enough money. There never will be enough money if you are not aligned and fulfilled on the inside. The bank account will never be big enough. And you and I both have worked with very wealthy people and known very wealthy people. it doesn't equate to fulfillment. And they don't
Mhm.
necessarily get off that hamster wheel because there still is this fear, lack, and scarcity that's underlying their drive to keep getting more and more and more. And I'd love to share your experience with money because I think this is something that's, especially the way the world is right now, the way the economy is right now. So many people are
Mhm.
worried about money and thinking, well, maybe this is not the time to take some money and invest in myself or invest in something beyond what I'm doing right now. And it's actually not really the way money works.
It's not. And like I mean, I don't have this true for sure, but like I would imagine Elon Musk has slept on a couch a time or two in his life. Like life is not linear. I was
No.
listening to a podcast with Brian Chesky, I think his name is, the founder of or maybe co-founder of Airbnb.
Mm.
He was talking about like when they started the company, they couldn't get investors. I don't think started. I think it was like when it was like a reasonable sized business. And he said we had a binder full of credit cards. Like he's like, I couldn't sleep. Like, I mean, there's like, a huge, I'm imagining like a baseball card binder full of credit cards, like with dates that things were due and had to juggle cash. I mean, there might have been 100 or 200 credit cards in this that they're having to like run their business with. I think we forget that like everybody that has like I mean these ultra successful, and I'm using the word successful not in only money wise, but just people that have maybe freedom, that are making an impact and have money. Like they've all gone through hardships and they've taken risks. They've, sold their car. They've more. I mean, I worked for a company where the owner had, she had 4 kids, and she threw her house on the line for the company. Like these are all. I mean, putting that in perspective, like, oh my gosh, like me taking a step back for a few months is like so tiny compared to the risks that a lot of people take. And I think we forget that nothing really good comes easy. And it's been my experience, with this money piece. I would say that, I mean, I can't believe that I'm saying this. I mean, I know that a lot of people worry about money. I was a level 10 worrier my whole life about money. And it's so crazy that I'm like catching myself saying this, that I was. Like 2025 was the year that I've learned to trust and surrender. I had a client the other day that was like, worried about, he just started a business. And I said, is there any risk of you ever being homeless? And he said, no, never. Like, you know, it's very interesting because we have these limiting beliefs and fears that are often not valid, and we all have them. I mean, I'm not saying like, I mean, I want to actually just kind of reorient us. I'm saying all of this with so much compassion and love and tenderness because I was the craziest of the crazy with all of these limiting beliefs and false, fears really. But, I have some money. There's been a couple of years where I've, had that 7-digit income. There was way more years that I was underpaid. My husband, I very luckily met somebody else who had parents that encouraged saving since he was 18 years old. Also, we saved our commissions and tax refunds younger. So we do have some freedom. But I've met so many people that have 5, 10, $20 million in the bank that are 45 years old, which, first of all, if you talk to a financial advisor, that is enough to completely stop working if you wanted to and live a very nice life. But people that don't want to like pay their own health insurance for a few months while they figure out what they want to do next. And, I don't like to talk about, like the hourly rates of things because the work that I do and had done in my sales and marketing agency too was always really priced based off of the impact and the return that I would provide my clients. But if I was to look at the price per hour, it's crazy. Like, only 3 years into coaching, I'm a year and a half leaving my prior business. I make more an hour than I've ever made before. And I made a lot of money in my sales and marketing agency. I started to like really think about, like what I'm doing coaching wise. And I think I mean, I'm writing a book. Like I've invested like $100,000 into this book. And it's like, I mean, and it's like still in proposal form right now. I've invested so many hours. And recently it hit me like I mean, I guess I thought what I was doing was kind of like easy. And it hit me like building a business like what I'm doing that is highly competitive and really having to, build our own market, really like no one's really walking around saying, "Hey, I'm looking to invest, X amount of dollars into my personal growth." There's very few people that are doing that. And it's crazy. Like I told myself that when I left this business behind a year and a half ago, that if I spent 20% of my net worth to completely change my life, would that be worth it? Knowing that my net worth is, probably above average. And yeah, when you put it that way, it's actually like it's really worth it. And I've spent nowhere near 20%, like nowhere near, probably something like 3 or 4 or 5%. And I think that one of the big things, and I'll pass the mic to you after this, but one of the things that really hit me, I watched my grandparents retire at like, I don't know, 55 or 60 years old and more or less sit on a couch for the next 20 or 30 years. And, my parents, they retired early. They do keep busy, but, they're not traveling or anything. And it really, like, what is, I started really examining retirement and like what I want for myself. And, and more power to you if you want to create a business that has value that you can sell that is, admirable. And I wish that maybe that was my desire, but it's not. I'm really looking to create a business for myself that I love working in till I'm 75 or so. I don't want to work very hard in my 70s, but I do still want to remain being sharp. And then when you put it that way, all of these normal retirement models that are based off of a whatever 63 or 65-year-old retirement, like if you add, a few years to that, you absolutely can take this time in your 30s or 40s or even 50s, take a year to stop saving and to realign your life with one that actually makes you happy.
Oh wow, there's so much value in there, and it's so funny when you talk about retirement. I have definitely also thought about retirement quite a bit, and what I love is the word retired. Like I just look at that
I never
word
thought
and
about
I
that.
go,
Yeah.
so when we retire, basically what we're saying is we're going to be tired over and over again.
Mhm.
I don't know why that stuck in my head so much, but and I 100% agree with you because if you look at it, like as human beings, we are meant to contribute. We are
Mhm.
meant to be engaged in life. And when you look, I remember when I was in corporate and my director that I worked for retired, and within, I think it was a year and a half, he had a massive heart attack. And that is not an unusual story.
It's
That is
not.
somebody
I
who's
have a story
pushed,
like
exactly, they push
Yeah, like
themselves.
I had a story like that happen a while ago. Sorry, and it's like it's crazy. Like it really. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, like when you hear that, like none of us are guaranteed to not have that be our story.
No, exactly. And that to me is somebody who is not, and I work for them and he's an amazing leader, but he also sacrificed a lot. He's self-abandoned. I could see it a lot when I was working with him, but it's an amazing leader. And thankfully he worked his way through and his health, he was okay through all of it. But exactly, it's like we're thinking there's this time all of a sudden in our life when it's, and I think there's a myth in that. There's a myth in that
Mhm.
one day it'll all be worth it. One day, one day, one day, one day. And for most people, and what, I think you and I both discovered in some sense in our own version is that day is when you decide it's the day. It's not going to be
Mhm.
somewhere out in the future that's magically going to happen. If you want joy and fulfillment and you want to feel peace, total inner peace, it actually is a choice that you have to make today. It will never happen in the future because we're creating from this moment of now. And, to bring this all full circle back to money. So, like you said, what are we saving for? And I'm like I used to be a CPA, so I'm very financially conscious and responsible. I'm probably one of the most financially responsible people you could probably meet. However, I look at, I live in a very affluent area of Vancouver, and I see Range Rovers and Porsches, and I know you live in LA and Lamborghinis all the time. And I look at what those vehicles cost, yet that's not questioned. so often. It's really very normalized in many places in the houses in the homes around here, multi-million dollar homes,
Mhm.
one after another, and we don't question that because
Mhm.
it's a status. However, if we want to slow down or we want to take some time and invest in ourselves, that's still not considered financially responsible in some ways. Yet some of those other things that are so normalized. And I think to myself, when I see some of these vehicles, I think I could have had a couple of these by now by what I've invested in myself.
Mhm.
But I would not take one of those and give up my peace and the fulfillment and the joy and just the enjoyment of life that I have. And
Mhm.
so I think it puts money into perspective. I've really, like I said, because of this background as a CPA, I've really looked at how people spend their money and
Mhm.
is it giving you the return that you actually, I mean, it's great to drive. If you want to drive a Lamborghini, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's amazing. And I'd like to drive one day. However, that lasts for a few moments. And like you said, when you talked
Mhm.
about, I think it was a Louis Vuitton bag you said you bought in your 20s.
Yeah.
I think the first time you buy it, it's like, I've made it, right? You have that and it
Mhm.
feels really good. But maybe the next one you buy is not so amazing, right? Like it becomes your normal. And that's the thing with money too. Whatever we have becomes our normal. Doesn't feel
Mhm.
so special anymore, right? However, taking that time, finding your alignment, that is an investment that reaps rewards for decades to come. And that's been my, like, all the thoughts that always go on in my mind and looking at my life and all the choices I've made, because I've made a lot of choices too. When you shared your information with me before we came on this, you mentioned, I think it was $200,000 you figured you spent, probably more than that by now, investing in yourself. And I'm close to around that too.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't, I wouldn't give back a dollar of it to if I had to
Mhm.
give back any of my internal peace and joy. I just wouldn't. It was worth every penny, even if it didn't go the way I thought it was, even if it didn't, things I didn't get the answers right away. I would never go back and change any of that.
I have so much to say about this. So, a couple of things. You know, I mean, I'm a very fiscally responsible person. My parents didn't do everything right, but they were good with money, a little frugal, but I learned to save. And it's funny that we're talking today because I've spent the past 2 hours reconciling my books and looking at finances. And, I love that you talked about the car and stuff. So I have a Porsche actually. I have a 911 Porsche that I bought in 2007, no, 2020, and it's a 2017. It's I never would have thought this would have been one of the wisest investments ever. It's barely depreciated in 6 years. You know, and I'm mentioning this because it's I think that some of us think that leaving this situation that's unfulfilling means we're taking the bus. It doesn't. I still have a Porsche. I have a nice house. It's very weird. My husband, he's in advertising sales. He had the best freaking year of his life, literally made probably nearly $200,000 more this year than normal. That overcompensated for, my transition time. I remember a week after I left my business, we got a refund from our homeowners insurance for $1,000. Not that that's gonna go too far, but it was like an omen. What? This has
Money's
never
coming
happened.
in,
Why
right?
are they?
Money's coming in.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at my expenditures this morning and I mean, and this is including a business. I mean, I'm running a business. I have, it's not, it's a services business, but I looked at my finances this morning for the year. I've dropped my, monthly expenditures from, I don't mind saying. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, kind of an average was about $18,000 a month to I got them down to about 11 or 12. Um,
Nice.
which it's that's a 50% reduction almost, right? And we still eat out. I mean, I don't really the only thing that I really don't do that much of during a transition like this is traveling. Guess what? I traveled all over the freaking world before this. It's fine. And all this also, I mean, I mean, I didn't mention this to you, but we're going through surrogacy right now, having a baby, which is very expensive. But at the same time, it's I mean, it's just so funny because we're actually making some conscious we have a nice house. We live in Hancock Park in Los Angeles. But it's And I like it, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, this is offered like an opportunity to sort of like, is this, I mean, it's a 100-year-old house. It's raining today. Like the house, like the windows leak. They're old. I mean, and like it does its own thing. Sometimes the window's fine. We've been here for 4 years. A window leaked yesterday for the first time ever. Like who would have thought, you know? The point that I'm making is it's like it's really we do probably have enough money where we could totally look at work in a whole different way and not really care about it ever again if we wanted to. We'd be living in a much, much different environment. But it wouldn't be like a horrible situation. It would be buying a home that's we have enough equity to buy it. It'd still probably be a three-bedroom home, maybe not in LA, but it's really offered us the opportunity to like really think like what do we want? We do want daycare, we want help, you know, we want someone to help so we can continue to live our lives, and that is more important than the vacations. And I'm sharing this all because it's just like, I mean, it's not that I don't want to go on vacations, and like my business is absolutely growing, but you know, it's been very interesting to like take this time to really evaluate what this lifestyle is. When people say, and I was one of them, when people say like I don't want to like give up this lifestyle, sit down with the paper and pen and really look how much this lifestyle costs you. And like, I mean, it's not probably as much as you think. When you take away the Disneyland trips or the, you know, the really nice to have things that you probably won't miss at all, it's interesting how we don't I mean it's not like we're making a massive change to take some time to figure out what we really want for the next stage in our life.
I love what you said there. And I laughed when you said about you think you're going to take the bus. It is so true. It is so true. We think that if we take our foot off the gas for a moment, that everything is going to fall apart.
Mhm.
And that is one of the biggest myths. It's not all going to fall apart. And there are seasons. And this is one thing I've had to embrace. So last year I took time away from my business to readjust it and realign it as well. And it was interesting when it happened, but I had such faith and trust that this was necessary. I wouldn't have been able to do that 3 or 4 years ago. There's no way. I would have been in a panic. Like I would have been like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But there are seasons. And I think that's part of money as well and lifestyle and all of those things. It's like we think that we're supposed to have things a certain way. And it was
Mhm.
a year and a half ago, I sold my house. So I had a big house, a big yard, and I raised my daughters. I'm a single mom. I raised my daughters by myself in that house. And I was exhausted of taking care of it. like, the thought of mowing the lawn, or like shoveling snow or raking leaves or made my stomach curl. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. It looks amazing. And so many people said to me, oh, you're so lucky to have such a beautiful home. And yes, you know what? I was blessed to have it, but I did not want it anymore. And so we
I,
downsized. Like my daughters are now adults, they're going to school. We're in 1,600 square feet. I
I
got rid
would, you
of,
know, our house.
yeah, I got rid of like 2/3 of everything we owned. And it was so cathartic. It was my garage. Like I spent like my whole basement and my garage in my old house pretty much went to the dumpster. I've got this little storage unit now of the only things that really matter to me. And now I want to travel. I've already been away this year once and it's only February. And so, yeah, you're right. It's like, what do we really want? And this is what I love what you said about it's everything mixed together. It's not just your professional life. It's like, what do you want with life? And start
Mhm.
moving towards it. Start actually moving towards it. So I have a question for you. So if you were somebody listening to this and you were at a place, you were at that crossroads, you're recognizing I'm not in alignment, something's not right. If you could give a
Mhm.
couple pieces of advice, because and I know you've got so much gold you could share, what would you say to them?
I'm really glad that you went this way because I wanted to weave in what you just said about that. I think you said try something new. Um, you know, there was, again, bringing Oprah up, there was, and it's just funny, like, there's been a few things that I've listened to several times recently, like
Mhm.
over the past couple of years, like, and that's not normal for me. And she interviewed Dr. Gary Zukov. It's
Yeah.
like her
Yep.
number one guest, her favorite person. And I listened to this episode like 3 times. and they were talking about this, and I wish I could like do as great of a job as they described, but it's like they gave the example of like boats going in a direction with the current, and like we are fighting like we're often fighting against that current, and he did such a better job explaining it. um, but it was like that's really what a lot of us are doing in life. That is our anxiety, as I say, and I used to have horrible anxiety. I don't really have anxiety anymore. I say anxiety is really our internal needs not matching our external environment and there being conflict around it. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily saying it's always going to be perfect, but we're going against that current and trying to deny the pain, the suffering, the reality we're in. And then Oprah asks him, like, what do you do if you don't know what direction to go in? And he says, well, try something. And as I've been working with clients lately, I brought that wisdom in, and it's like, there's the adage of like volunteering somewhere. Sure. Maybe it's not volunteering at the pet store. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's going to an organization that you've been curious about, calling in sick at your day job and saying, I want to go volunteer or, apprentice here for the day. We're in this like period of like it's not that hard to stand out. Like most people don't want to do anything in person. They don't want to give anything away for free, and if you knocked on someone's door and said, "Hey, like I'm 42 years old and I'm looking for a new career and I'm really interested in what you're doing over here. Can I, come shadow you for a day and promise you X, Y, and Z? Bring in some homemade cookies, and, do you think they're not going to remember you and potentially that leading to something? Maybe it's not that, maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it is volunteering somewhere. Maybe it's taking a job that you might not like and seeing if you do like it. Maybe you don't take it if like you leaving in 2 months would leave the company in a terrible situation, but maybe you try it out and see what it, and I mean, and see what it's like. This is the biggest thing that I've had to work through. I would say maybe not the biggest, that might be an overstatement, but I didn't have a direction. And I think so many people like me who have abandoned themselves to feel belong somewhere, I mean, to belong somewhere, didn't belong growing up in their homes, or, I had no friends until in high school. And, my life had just become survival. Like I didn't have any, like, I mean, I was so detached from myself. And then I don't know. I mean, I started talking to people. I think that's a great thing. Talk to people, someone that's been there before. I was listening to another podcast not long ago, and it was like two billionaires talking, and they were like, if anybody like emailed me and said, "Hey, can I have an hour of your time for $1,000?" I'd probably say yes. It's not like that he needs $1,000, but it's
Yeah.
someone respecting his time enough to like give him
Yeah.
something that's, meaningful. So there's that option. But like, for me, like I started yoga teacher training. I became a yoga teacher. Unfortunately, yoga teaching pays next to zero. I mean, literally like almost nothing. But it did show me that like it showed me a direction. It showed me that I enjoyed vulnerable conversations. This kind of all led to something, about a year ago when I was growing my coaching business and, trying to meet local people that I could serve. I started what I called the Friday Brunch Club in my home. I looked around my house. It was funny. It was like, I'm like, okay, so I have this really expensive house payment, and it would be nice during this time of transition if I didn't. Okay, beautiful dining room and kitchen. I love cooking. Ina Garten, she's the Barefoot Contessa. She's a chef. She's my number one, probably favorite people ever. And synchronistically, she had her memoir come out like in October, I think, of 2024. And I read it. I'm just like glued to this thing. And like, again, it's these ups and downs and trying things. And her whole message is like, if you do something you love, you'll be really good at it and you'll make a lot of money. So I
Yes.
started this brunch club, inviting random strangers into my home. I understand that that might not be for everybody. My husband and I don't care. We're fine with it. Take people to a park, do some wine and cheese picnic at a park. Anyway, like, so I brought people into my home. I've had more than 25 of these, over 200 strangers into my home. I thought I would have wanted to do this every day and like be an Ina Garten type person on TV. And like I quickly learned, like, oh, this is fine to do once or twice every other week or whatever. But no, I do not want to freaking do this every day. So I tried something out and it's turned into something beautiful. Forbes just picked it up. They found me and they reach out to me, and and wrote about it. And, you know, just try something. Talk to somebody. I mean, there's a lot of us coaches out here that help people exactly with this. We've been through this. We've helped clients through this. I would say probably the biggest thing I see, probably the biggest help that I bring somebody, maybe I don't know. It's a big amount of help. Like there's gray area. When we're in our own minds, there's this black and white, bus
Yeah.
or miserable professional life. We help you see the gray area. It is there's a lot in between that.
There is so much gray area. And that I love, love, love that you brought all that up because it is like I've had so many clients come to me when I was helping people leave corporate and they would have this list, 5 or 6 items. Every single person came with this list of what I think I could do instead. And it's like after working with me, they never picked the list. There is so many options of everything and anything you could possibly imagine. There's companies that align with people. There are jobs that align with people. We've got to get out of our heads. That's the biggest. I see this as one of the biggest challenges we have right now. And people who are not fulfilled, who don't feel in alignment, the biggest challenge is to get out of your head because your
Mhm.
brain is only going to draw from what you already know, and you've already done what you already know. It's now time to step into something different, and it's not it doesn't, and I'd love to hear what you're going to say about this, but it doesn't usually make sense at the time. Like it's usually this random weird thing. It's like, go talk to that person. You're just like, why would I do that? Or go into that
Mhm.
store. You're like it's just little tiny breadcrumbs. This is how my journey unfolded. Just me following the breadcrumbs. And then the next thing I know, I've completely changed my life. Like, how does that happen,
Mhm.
right? This person leads to this person. This thing leads to this
Mhm.
thing. And it's like this journey, but our brain, our logical mind loves this 20-step, 20-year plan that's going to get me from
Mhm.
A to B. And that is just not, if you want alignment, that doesn't work. So I
And
love what you
I'm
said.
like,
Yeah.
I think we're both living proof of this too. Like, I used to be that person.
Me too.
Like, I thought I needed that so bad, and I don't need it so much anymore. Like, it's very, I think my life is trying to tell me something right now. I don't think I'm going to hear it like quickly. We're having a baby. I'm 42. My husband's 39. We're a little later in life to be doing this. Not like in a bad way. I don't feel like it's too late or anything like that. But it's like, we've done a lot in life. We have options, and I'm not sure that like we're not going to end up moving international one day. I'm not sure that like we're not going to be bi-coastal or do. I kind of think that like life is sort of asking something like that of me. I feel like that we are in such a time of change right now, as we all know, and we have two choices. You can be scared or you can embrace it and get creative. I am going to be creative. I think we are at a place, I'm seeing this with this brunch club. Like there is going to be a desire for people to be connecting in person. I think we've gone a little bit too far in this disconnected virtual age. I think it's absolutely going to keep growing in a lot of ways, but I think that there's always change. And I think that right now, like we need, like we're having a daughter and I'm like laughing about it because like I don't think she's gonna go to college the same way we did. I don't know that, you don't need to know you won't need to know things like that. We don't even need to know most of the stuff we learn now. So it's very, and I think that I guess I'm like trying to, you know, reinforce what you said. There's not a 20-year plan anymore right now. We have no idea what the world is going to look like in 20 years. So there's no better time to embrace this unknown and live a little bit more for today.
I agree with you. And like you said, there's no predictability anymore. So even if you try, it's an exercise in futility. It really is. And not to make that scary, but like you said, it's actually an opportunity. This is an opportunity. Life, and that's how I've been looking at all of this, is life is now grabbing all of us and saying, hey, this is it. It's time. It's time to actually embrace who you really are and enjoy this experience and not just survive till you leave. So
Mhm.
I love everything you said there, and I think that is just a beautiful way to end this episode. Before I do though, so just so everybody knows, I'm going to put Matt's contact information and website and everything in the show notes here. Is there anything you want to share about your work, or I just want to give you a moment? Is there a resource or something you want to share with anybody who's listening who wants to know more about you, what you do, and connect more with you?
Thank you. I would like to share like, as I've really contemplated what I do in the world, you know, I think there's a place for all the scientific, things in the world, like the NLPs, the Dr. Joe Dispenzas. Like I love that stuff. I didn't really learn from that very much. I learned from memoirists, from other people being vulnerable and sharing the messy middle of all of this. So that's really what I do. I write on a Substack. I have my book coming out hopefully in the next year or so. But I don't present as this person that has everything figured out. My life, I am on this growth journey. There's plenty of things that are going to continue to change. So if anybody's interested in connecting with somebody real who, knows what the struggle is like, that's who I am. I make clients feel very understood. There's nothing that somebody could tell me that I would like be jarred by. Have a crazy life of my own. There's plenty more out there. I'm sure you can read about my journey and the less than great choices I've made, but that's life. And I feel like we didn't get a chance to actually talk about this, but the leadership piece that we were kind of brainstorming about in terms of being vulnerable, and it's not like airing all of your dirty laundry, but like we're at a place where, humans in my experience, are drawn to other people who are real humans also. So I encourage anybody just, if you want to talk more about that, I'd love to. And yeah, shoot me an email. You're going to put my email in contact. Go to my website, follow me on social if you want to. If you're in LA or know somebody that is, this brunch club is pretty cool, I have to say. I don't charge for it either. There is a wait list and application process. But yeah, I'm doing it every Friday right now and inviting, cool people that I can learn from and people that I can help into my house. So
I think I need to
that's
go to
me.
LA. It's like a two and a
It's
half
pretty
hour flight.
special. It's pretty special doing this, and it's like, and yeah, it's pretty special.
Thank you so much for your time and all the things you shared, Matt. I really, really appreciate it. And for you listening, I hope you got so much value out of this conversation. I know I did. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.